All right, lesson 5.4 is combining like terms. To combine like terms means to put something that's alike together. And it's like organizing. So 5.4, the homework will be found on page 14 once we get to that part. Please open to page 7 in your packet and you'll fill in some notes. We did some other notes in class, so this will fill in the rest. On page 7, it says, what is the difference between 5b and b to the 5th? And what you'll notice is that those are going to be unlike terms based on what we talked about in class. 5b is really b plus b plus b plus b plus b. It's 5 b's that are added together. If we have b to the 5th, that is b times b times b times b times b. It's b multiplied by itself 5 times. So these are two totally different things. So please make sure that you understand that those are unlike terms and cannot be combined. What is the difference between 2ab cubed and 2 times the quantity ab cubed? Well, if you look down below, 2ab cubed is really 2 times a times b times b times b. And please fill these in your notes on page 7. If you have 2 times ab cubed, notice the a and the b are cubed. So that's like saying ab times ab times ab, which if we were to simplify that, we would have a times a times a times b times b times b by the commutative property, and we'd still have a 2 in the front. So these three a's together make a to the third.
Mr. Oberdos,
so 2a to the third.
Mr. Oberdos?
And b times b would be b to the third. So notice this is different from 2ab cubed. If we have the quantity 2ab, the whole thing cubed, notice that means 2ab times 2ab times 2ab. So the 2 also has to get cubed. And so then, again, we would put the 2's together. We could put the a's together and the b's together. And if we were to simplify this, we would write 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, a cubed, b cubed. So notice, these are three very different expressions. All right, moving on. Please turn to page 8 and double check that you have that whole page completed. If you do not, you may use these for notes. The blue is what you should copy, and the red is what you should figure out yourself. What you'll notice is that when you have like terms, they have to have terms that match. So AB would be the same as BA, which is the same as AB. Notice the coefficient, or the number before the AB, could be anything. It could be positive or negative. Terms that do not have like terms, or that are called unlike terms, cannot be put together. So for example, if I have B, that would not be the same as B squared, and obviously would also not be the same as A. So later, we're going to talk about those as being either three different colors, or we might even talk about different shapes for those. So maybe I'll give this 3 lines, this 2 lines, and this 1 line, if you don't have different colors. All right. Also make sure you check the bottom of page 8. You should be able to do that on your own, and then you can use this as a correcting tool. Notice that, again, when you have A times A, it's the same as A squared. And notice that like terms do not have to have the same coefficient. but they do have to have the same letter to the same power. In other words, the same variable to the same power. All right. Moving on, could you please turn to page 9? And now we're going to look at different types of like terms. So if I have 2a plus 3a, that would be given to you in the problem. So please write this down, 2a plus 3a. If I wanted to combine those like terms, and they are like because they're both a's, then I might give them both the same underline or the same color because they're both a's. And then I would just look at the numbers to add those two together. If I have 2 a's and I have 3 more a's, those are just like positive symbols, like what we learned at the beginning of the year. Then total, I would put those together and say I have 5 a's. Now try example 1 when combining like terms with negative coefficients. So if I have a negative coefficient, that means a negative number before the letter. So negative 9j plus negative 7j. Notice negative and a negative. You add those because we know a negative plus a negative is more negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are all negatives. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When I do this, I total up the number of total negatives and I write that number. But don't forget the j. The j is what tells you you have your final answer. Or the j is what completes your answer. Sorry, that's what I meant. Okay? If you combine like terms with a positive and a negative, remember that means subtract. Different signs subtract. And same signs add and keep. And with this one, you use the sign of the bigger number. If you already know this, you don't have to write that part, but I would like you to write down the example, 4x plus a negative 2x. Notice the parentheses are just to help you remember that that's a negative 2x. So if I have 4 positives, this is where you really have to understand how to add and subtract with positive and negative numbers. Then remember that 2 of these will cancel out with 2 of these, and I'm just left with 2 positives. I have to label it with an X to give my final answer. Okay. Lastly, combining like terms with a negative and a positive is the same same kind of thing. I've got a negative 9v, please write this down, plus a 7v. So I've got 9 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I've got 7 positives, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I know that 7 of those are going to cancel out. And 2 negatives will be left over. I also have to label that with a V. Your turn. Please go to this side and create your own. So write an example and then write a simplified form. Make sure you follow the format of what it's asking you to do. At the bottom of the page, please copy these problems down. We are going to color code this. I have the benefit of being able to use a highlighter. If you want to use colored pencils or a highlighter yourself, that would be great. Okay, so for this problem, combining like terms with positive coefficients and more than one type of term. That's what that meant. So if I have not just x's, but I also have this xy, I need to pay attention to which is which, because I can only combine like terms. And xy would be an unlike term because of the y. So 4x would be the same, but 3 is not the same, and 5xy is also not the same. So now I'm going to pick a different color. I will put 3xy as purple. Then I can only put another xy as purple. And lastly, I've got this plus 3. That's just a constant. That will get its own color. All right, after we color code it, now you can go ahead and combine only the same colors. So 2x and 4x make 6x. 3xy and 5xy, if I have 3 plus 5, I get 8xy. Remember to label it with what it is. And lastly, plus 3. It's a little bit like cleaning. You're cleaning this up and you're putting things together. You're simplifying. That's what this is called. All right, try the next one. I've got negative 2x plus a negative 3xy plus a negative 4x plus a negative 3 plus a negative 5xy. Okay, color code. I'm just going to take that off so it's not confusing with the colors. Okay, so now we're going to highlight the different colors. Let's start with yellow. All right, so negative 2x has to go with negative 4x because those are both just x's. Next, I'll do the xy, negative 3xy and negative 5xy. Notice we're doing negative coefficients this time, and I'm just going to use blue this time. All right, so it doesn't matter what colors you use, just as long as you're consistent and you put the like ones together. All right, so I'm going to do yellow first. Negative 2 and negative 4 is negative 6x. Negative 3 and negative 5 is negative 8xy. Notice I called it a negative even though I wrote a subtraction sign. Because of stay, change, those mean the same thing. And the more comfortable you are with saying them each way, the better off you'll be. So think of it as either plus a negative, like it shows right here, or minus, which is a simplified form of the same thing. All right, and lastly, combining like terms with a positive and a negative. So again, we have to first combine like terms. Please copy down what it says. You can copy the shapes if you want, or you can just do a color coding, like what I'm going to do next. So we have 2x, we'll go with negative 4x. And notice those are different signs, so we're going to have to subtract. Negative 3xy, we'll go with the 5xy. And notice I always have to highlight the negative along with the number. That's really important. Also notice that these all just so happen to be plus a negative already. If that's not the case, you need to do stay, change so that they are. And here, plus a negative 3. Okay, now I put like terms together. So like colors, in this case, 2x is positive and negative 4x is negative. So I'll do 2 minus 4, which is negative 2x. If you don't have the negative, it would be wrong. And I'm putting x first because it goes in alphabetical order. The 3xy is negative and the 5xy is positive. So because 5 is bigger, I will have a plus 2xy as my next term. And lastly, I have minus 3, which is the same as plus and negative 3. That's my final answer. Okay, so that is the rest of combining like terms. On your homework, please notice that 6 terms exist in this first problem. So you should have 6 shapes. They may all be the same, they may all be different. And I'll show you how to do this one more time if you did not see it already. The first thing you need to do is put symbols around everything, or color code it like we did before. I'll do the symbols this time so you can see that in case you don't have different colors. So I'm doing rectangles for x's, but I'm including the negative sign in my rectangle. That's very important. Then I've got y's in triangles and a circle around my constant. I put the triangles together and the rectangles together. A negative 3 and a negative 10 is negative 13x. I started with x because you need to do it in alphabetical order. And you also need to watch the sign. If it's a negative, you have to keep the negative with the number. Okay, so that's why this is negative 13x. Now I have 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 6 is 15. So plus 15y, and then plus 8. That one doesn't have a partner, so I just rewrite it. This doesn't look very simplified, but it is. That is your final answer. If I try to do this one with you, again, different signs I have to subtract, but they have the same shape because they're both m's. So I have negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5, but I have to write the m. Notice the number is always before the letter. Okay, one last thing to note. As I said before, always do alphabetical order. So if you look at this problem, it's going to look like there is nothing to do, nothing to simplify. But remember, it's needing to be alphabetical. So you should have the A's first, then the B's, then the C's, then the D's, then the E's. And you should stay, change on all problems because look, that makes this a positive 7E. And that will change your answer unless you remember to do stay, change. Excuse me. All right, one last thing. This number 4 has a negative x. That means it's a negative 1x. Okay, anytime you have a letter without a number, it means negative 1. Or if it's just a letter, it would just be 1x. All right, so combining like terms is pretty exciting. I hope you understood and let me know how I did. If you have any questions, please let me know.